Hello, welcome to Liz Rocks and Stuff. I'm Liz. It's time for episode 64 of What's in My Tumbler, starting out with Mix It Up. This is a mixed batch of rocks. These are kind of leftovers of other batches that were able to move on, things that weren't ready when the rest of it was. So there's a whole host of things in here, and I don't even know what all of them are, but there's definitely some jasper, some aventurine, a little bit of everything, maybe some bloodstone. So this is going to first get rinsed off. It's currently in stage 3, moving into stage 4. So the first thing I always do is do a cleaning cycle. Now, I personally do my cleaning cycles with ivory soap. That's just my personal preference. You can definitely use borax if you want. I do want to talk about the kind of the pros and cons of ivory soap versus borax, so that if you're kind of trying to decide, you understand kind of what that decision process should look like. Ivory soap, the drawback to that is it can leave a waxy residue on your rocks. If you look really closely, especially on, there's a tan rock in here, when I rinse it off, the water sort of just beads off of it. It doesn't kind of stick to it the way it sticks to the other rocks. That could potentially be a residue from the ivory soap. Borax does not leave that residue. It doesn't have anything like that. By the way, right here, I am inspecting to see if there's anything that's chipped or broken that I might want to take out so it doesn't ruin the rest of the batch. So I use ivory soap because it is faster. And for cleaning purposes, I don't want to tumble my rocks overnight, so I do ivory soap. It works in a couple of hours. Borax takes a little longer, but it doesn't leave that waxy residue on your rocks. It also, where you rinse it, will kill your plants. So if you're rinsing this in your grass, it will kill your grass. So that's something else to keep in mind. That's why I always rinse in my rock beds, if you notice. Because it will bleed straight down and it won't get into my grass and kill my grass, because I do use borax with my grits and as a burnishing cycle at the end. So I will use both borax and ivory soap for different applications. For me personally, rinsing and cleaning between cycles, I'll use ivory soap. For burnish and with grits, I will use borax. So now we're looking at marine photography. This is a mix of picture jasper and ocean jasper, also in stage 3 going into stage 4. And getting back to that conversation, the reason that I use borax with my grits is because it actually changes, I forget the terminology, but it changes how the water and the grits interact, and it allows the grit to suspend in the water rather than sinking down to the bottom. And so it allows the grit to work better because it's throughout the whole slurry and not just sitting at the bottom. I've seen some people that have actually done this, looked at microscopes and to see how the grit looks before and after with borax, without borax, and in my research that I've done, I find that it does actually help. If you don't use borax with your grits, it's fine. It will still work. But that's just my personal preference. So this is going into a soap cycle. I completely forgot to actually put soap and water in this before I closed this up the first time, and I didn't realize it until I was rinsing Pebbles. So I had to go back and open this back up and put soap in it so that I could actually have a cleaning cycle. So this is me rinsing off for the cleaning cycle. Also for stage 4, since I was talking throughout Mix It Up, I didn't get into this. When I do my stage 4, I'll use 3 tablespoons of grit with 1 tablespoon of borax. For my cleaning cycles, I'll just use 1 tablespoon of either ivory soap or borax, whichever one you want to use. And for burnishing, I'll use 1 tablespoon of borax, and that's after stage 4. The purpose of the burnish is to make sure you have all of your grit off the rocks and that they are giving the best polish shine that they can. So I just got done inspecting, making sure nothing's broken or chipped. I'm not happy with how full this is, so I'm going to add a little bit more media to it, and then button this up with some water and then tablespoon of borax, 3 tablespoons of stage 4 grit. That's probably a little too much water in there. You generally want your water to be below the level of what you have in there, but I just went with it. It's hot outside. I didn't want to be out there any longer than I needed to. There's also a little bit of soap left on the side of the barrel, so I needed to clean that off. I don't want to bring that in and have that all over my tumblers. So this is marine photography going into stage 4. So I'll have 2 barrels done and stage 4 next week, which is exciting. Now we have Pebbles Flintstone. This is rocks from my rock bed that I'm shining up for my husband to use for photography purposes. And it's actually doing pretty good. I'm going to do some experimenting and some other things with this because, you know, if these don't turn out, it's not a big deal. These came out of my rock bed. They were super cheap. So I only care about the 3 big rocks in here, and I feel like they've all gotten to a point where they are as good as they're going to get in my size tumbler. If I had a slightly bigger tumbler, I could probably get them a little bit better, but not at this time. So that's why I'm only looking at the 3 big rocks, and then I'm going to put the other small ones in there. And then again, I'm not happy with how full this is, but I have some untumbled media that I got, and stage 2 is kind of the perfect time to put in new media. So this is a cleaning cycle. Sometimes I do it between 1 and 2. Sometimes I don't. I did decide to do a cleaning cycle this time. So this is a stage 1 soap cycle. Anyway, getting back to it. If you're not aware, when you get new ceramic media, it has very sharp edges. So you don't want to throw it in your later 3 and 4 stages because those sharp edges will hurt your polish in the end. So you want to throw them in. You can throw them in at stage 1, but then it's going to kind of grind them down more than you really need to. Stage 2 is kind of a good point to add in untumbled media so that you can get those sharp edges off and it's not going to hurt your final result. So in here I have, there's 2 sizes that I have. There's this big and then this little, and it was a little full. Like it was all the way as much as I couldn't put any more in here. And I was a little concerned about it, but I knew that there were air pockets towards the bottom that I can't really get to. So what I ended up doing is after I filled this up, I'm going to pour some of that water out because there was too much. Made a little bit of a dent in there, added in my tablespoon of borax, and then I did 2.5 tablespoons of stage 2 because this doesn't tumble as well as it should because there's, you know, the big rocks in there kind of prevent that. After I closed this up, I did I kind of shook it up and spun it around a bit to sort of settle things a little bit better, and I opened it back up and there was enough room I could pour some water out. Still over full, but for the purposes of this it's fine because I don't really care how that batch turns out. I'm not super invested in it. So finally we have Ruby Rose part 2 or take 2. This is a very bruised batch that I just finished. So I'm going to see how it's turning out. I'm going to dry this piece off just to sort of check. Now, I don't like the way that this ruby in zoyshite is feeling. It's very rough. It doesn't feel like it's going to shine at all. I'm more hoping that the rest of this batch gets shiny because they just, the whole batch did not shine up when I did it last time. So I added more rocks to it because it was very low, and I'm just running it a week in every stage to see if I can get rid of some of the bruising that I had last time in hopes that this batch can get better. I am experimenting with some hand polishing, so if the ruby doesn't turn out, maybe I'll try hand polishing it and I'll record that and see how that goes. But that's kind of how this is working at the moment, is I'm just trying to get rid of the bruising and get everything but the ruby to shine up. If the ruby gets shiny, I will be very happy, but also very, very surprised. I just don't like the way that it's feeling and looking at this point in time. So this is me doing an inspection, making sure, again, nothing is broken or chipped and going to cause problems later. It looks great to me. So everything just kind of ends up getting put right back into the barrel. And then I'm going to do a tablespoon of borax and then the remainder of what I have of stage 2 grit, because I apparently need to order more. It was about 3 tablespoons. It was in that ballpark. So we're going to be fine. So this is going to go into stage 2, and so Pebbles and Ruby Rose Take 2 are also going to be done at the same time. So I got to figure out 4 barrels that I'm going to need to get done. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope that this was informative, and I'd like to see you back next week.